What happens to Helaena Targaryen? House of the Dragon explained, warning, spoiler warning. Before we begin, this video contains major spoilers for House of the Dragon and George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood. We'll explain Helaena Targaryen's tragic journey, what ultimately happens to her in the books, why her death changes the course of the Dance of the Dragons, and whether HBO could give her a different ending. With that said, let's get started. When fans talk about the most tragic character in House of the Dragon, most immediately think of Rhaenyra, Daemon, or even Aegon. But perhaps no one suffers more quietly than Helaena Targaryen. She never wanted the Iron Throne. She never sought power. She never enjoyed war. Instead, she wanted peace, her children, her dragon, and a quiet life far away from politics. But the Dance of the Dragons doesn't spare the innocent. By the end of the story, Helaena loses almost everything, and her fate becomes one of the most heartbreaking moments in all of Fire and Blood. So, what really happens to Helaena Targaryen? And will HBO keep her ending the same? Let's break it all down. Who is Helaena Targaryen? Before discussing her fate, let's understand who Helaena really is. Helaena is the daughter of King Viserys I Targaryen and Alicent Hightower. That makes her the younger sister of Aegon II, Aemond, and Daeron Targaryen. Following Targaryen tradition, she eventually marries her own brother, Aegon II. Together, they have children who become central to the succession crisis. Unlike many members of her family, Helaena has little interest in politics. She's gentle, soft-spoken, kind, often appearing lost in her own thoughts. But there's something unusual about her. She frequently speaks strange sentences that make little sense at first. Later, viewers realized they were actually prophecies. Throughout House of the Dragon, Helaena repeatedly predicts future events long before anyone else realizes what's coming. That mysterious gift makes her one of the series' most fascinating characters. Helaena and Dreamfyre. There's another side of Helaena many viewers are only beginning to discover. She's the rider of Dreamfire, one of the oldest and most beautiful dragons still alive during the dance. Unlike Vhagar or Caraxes, Dreamfire isn't known for constant warfare. She shares a remarkably peaceful bond with Helaena. In Season 3, the series finally gives audiences a glimpse of Dreamfire during Helena's haunting dream sequence. For years, fans wondered why such an important dragon had barely appeared. Now it's becoming clear that Dreamfire represents more than military power. She reflects Helaena herself, elegant, gentle, powerful, yet tragically caught inside a war she never wanted. The blood and cheese tragedy changes everything. If there's one event that completely destroys Helena's life, it's blood and cheese. Following Lucerys Valerion's death, Daemon seeks revenge. Instead of targeting Aemond directly, two assassins infiltrate the Red Keep. Blood, a brutal former Goldcloak, and Cheese, a rat-catcher who knows the castle's hidden passages. They corner Helaena with her young children. Then, they force her into an impossible choice. She must decide which child should die. No mother should ever face such a decision. Helaena desperately begs them to take her own life instead. They refuse. After she reluctantly names one son, the killers murder the other child instead. It's an act of unimaginable cruelty, and Helaena never truly recovers. That single night changes her forever. Why does Helaena withdraw from everyone? After Blood and Cheese, Helaena becomes almost unrecognizable. She rarely leaves her chambers. She barely eats, barely speaks. The joy that once existed inside her disappears. Some characters believe she's suffering from overwhelming grief. Others think her prophetic visions become even more terrifying after the tragedy. Whatever the cause, she grows increasingly isolated. Even those closest to her struggle to reach her. While the rest of House Targaryen continues fighting over crowns and dragons, Helaena quietly falls apart. It's one of the saddest transformations in George R.R. Martin's entire history of Westeros. The weight of her prophetic visions. One reason Helena's suffering feels different from everyone else's is that she often seems to know terrible things before they happen. Throughout the show, she speaks in riddles. Many characters dismiss her words, but viewers later realize they were warnings. Imagine carrying that burden. Imagine seeing fragments of the future, knowing tragedy is coming, yet being unable to stop it. That possibility makes Helena's story even more heartbreaking. She may understand more than anyone else, but she's powerless to change fate. Whether her visions are true prophecy or simply symbolic dreams, they're a constant reminder that disaster is approaching. What happens to Helaena in Fire and Blood? Now we arrive at the biggest spoiler. According to Fire and Blood, Helaena eventually dies after falling from Maegor's holdfast into the courtyard below. The official story declares it a suicide. The explanation seems simple. A grieving mother, broken by unimaginable trauma, finally loses the will to live. But George R.R. Martin immediately complicates that explanation, because not everyone believes it. Some characters suspect murder. Others believe political enemies wanted her removed. Some even whisper that darker conspiracies were involved. The truth is never confirmed. Martin intentionally leaves Helena's final moments shrouded in mystery. That's one reason readers continued debating her fate years later. Did she jump? Was she pushed? Or was someone trying to silence the queen who knew too much? The books never provide a definitive answer. Why Helena's death changes the war. Many people assume Helena's death only affects her family. In reality, it changes the entire war. Unlike many members of the royal family, Helaena is genuinely loved by the people of King's Landing. The small folk see her as kind, gentle, innocent. When news of her death spreads, the city erupts with grief and anger. Rumors spread almost immediately. Many blame Queen Rhaenyra. Whether those accusations are true doesn't matter. People believe them. Public opinion turns sharply against Rhaenyra. The outrage contributes to growing unrest inside King's Landing. That anger eventually becomes one of the major reasons Rhaenyra's rule begins collapsing. In other words, Helena's death doesn't just end one life. It helps reshape the entire Dance of the Dragons. Could House of the Dragon change her ending? Now comes the question every viewer is asking. Will HBO follow the books, or will Helena's story be different? The honest answer is, we don't know. And there are good reasons to think the show could expand her ending. House of the Dragon has already changed several important storylines from Fire and Blood. Perhaps the biggest example is Rhaenyra claiming sheep stealer, replacing Nettles. The show has also greatly expanded Helena's prophetic abilities. Her visions play a much larger role than they do in the historical accounts. Because of those changes, the writers may choose to provide a clearer explanation for her death. Instead of leaving the mystery unresolved, the series could show exactly what happened. Or it may preserve George R.R. Martin's ambiguity, allowing viewers to decide for themselves. At this point, nothing has been officially confirmed, so any prediction remains speculation until future episodes air. Why Helaena is one of the most tragic Targaryens. When people remember the Dance of the Dragons, they often remember epic dragon battles, political betrayals, and famous warriors. But Helaena reminds us that wars are rarely fought only by soldiers. They're endured by families, children, and ordinary people trapped between powerful rulers. She never wanted power, never sought revenge, never dreamed of conquest. Yet she suffers more than almost anyone else. Her story isn't one of ambition. It's one of innocence destroyed by a war she never chose. Perhaps that's why so many fans connect with her. She represents every victim caught in conflicts created by others. Final thoughts. So, what happens to Helaena Targaryen? In Fire and Blood, her life ends in tragedy after falling from Maegor's holdfast. Whether that fall was suicide, murder, or something else entirely remains one of George R.R. Martin's greatest unanswered mysteries. But her death means far more than the loss of a single queen. It changes public opinion, destabilizes King's Landing, and helps push the Dance of the Dragons toward its devastating conclusion. Whether HBO follows the books exactly or chooses a different path, one thing is already certain. Helaena Targaryen will be remembered not as a conqueror or a warrior, but as one of the kindest souls ever born into House Targaryen. A woman blessed with visions, cursed with unimaginable grief, and trapped inside a war she never wanted. Sometimes the greatest tragedy isn't losing a battle. It's losing your peace long before your life ends.